Let's get more now from our political editor Lyndal, who's speaking with the opposition spokesman for Families, Housing and Human Services, Kevin Andrews.
Kevin Andrews, welcome to News 24.
Thanks very much, Lyndal.
The government's already toughened the rules for people who refuse a suitable job and for those who don't turn up to interviews, and it's cracked down on the disability support pension. Why is there a need to be even tougher?
Well, we have a situation in Australia at the present time where the number of people in receipt of long-term unemployment benefits, that's New Start for 12 months or more, has blown out to over 350,000. We've got a substantial increase in the number of people on the disability, about 700 to... This is all at a time when we have employers and businesses across Australia crying out for workers. So from the point of view of trying to bring these two things together, on one hand a pool of unemployed people, on the other hand a need for workers, it makes sense to actually make some further reforms.
Do you believe that pool of people don't want to look for work, that they need the extra push, or are there other blockages you could look at in the system?
Look, there's going to be a variety of factors depending on the circumstances and the attitude of each individual person. But what we're saying is that if there are any institutional blockages, then we should be removing them. So what Tony has announced today is going towards actually giving people the incentive and giving them the opportunity to get into work. We think work is better than welfare for most people.
It does look from the sorts of measures that Mr Abbott is proposing that you believe the institutional blockages come from the people who are unemployed, that they need that shove to go out and get some work.
Well, this is not the only measure that government would take in terms of the unemployed. I mean, there's a range of training programs, there's the whole job employment network which aids people. So this is something in addition to what we've got at the present time. But if you look at the measures that Tony's announced, for example, the one in relation to quarantining of welfare payments, we started that in the Northern Territory with Indigenous communities. The current government, with our support, extended that to all people who are long-term unemployed in the Northern Territory, regardless of whether they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous. If it's good enough for people in the Northern Territory and it's working there, then we don't see why it shouldn't be extended right throughout the country.
It was reported in February last year that Tony Abbott put near identical proposals to the Shadow Cabinet shortly before he became leader. He also raised the option of banning the dole for under-30s to entice them to fill skill shortages last April. Why were these measures not put to the election?
Well, I wasn't in the Shadow Cabinet before Tony became the leader, Lyndal. I've only been there again since he became the leader, so I'm not sure of what happened or what the circumstances were at that stage. But we took some policies to the last election. They included relocation allowances, for example, incentives for older Australians to go back into the workforce. So there's a range of things, but we've continued to revise our policies. We continue to review them, and we believe that more should be done, particularly when you've got this really a spike in terms of long-term unemployment and an increase in the number of people on the disability support pension, which is over and above any population increase. Is it fair to say you took the carrot to the election and now we're seeing the stick? I know this is both, if you want to use that sort of language, it's both incentives and disincentives. If you look back when we made major reforms in terms of welfare back in 2005, that was at a cost to revenue, I think, of about $3 billion. So this is not just taking a stick to the problem, it's actually saying it's better for individuals, it's certainly better if they have families and children, and it is better in terms of society if people who are capable of working can actually be in work.
The reported Shadow Cabinet submission put the cost for the mandatory work for the dole after 3 months at $10.5 billion. Now, Tony Abbott's proposed that it be mandatory after 6 months. Is the cost still likely to be in the billions of dollars, and have you done a costing on it?
Our responsibility in terms of costing is to provide costings on all our policies when we go to the next election, and that's what we will do.
So have you done the costing on this one? You just won't provide it till the next election?
No, we will provide the costings at the next election. There's a lot of detail that we'll still work through. We will consult, obviously, people in the sector about detail of the policy. We've given a broad general direction of the way in which we want to go, but we'll provide the costings to the Australian people at the appropriate time.
But if Mr Abbott had some costings in November 2009 when he put his submission into the shadow cabinet, why can't you come up with costings now?
Well, that's a tempting invitation, Lyndal, but our responsibility, our obligation is to provide costings at the time when people come to make a decision at the next election, and that's what we'll do.
Is it likely to be in the billions of dollars?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on the actual costing at this stage, except to say that we'll do the responsible thing in terms of providing our costings.
Earlier this month, Joe Hockey proposed intensive case management for the long-term unemployed. Why hasn't that idea been taken up?
Well, these are ideas that we've been looking at over the last few months, and indeed, as you indicated earlier, we've been looking at over the last few years. These are the policies we're announcing at this stage. I think they're sensible policies. They're ones which I suspect the great majority of Australians will actually support.
But could you look at intensive case management down the track?
Well, there is case management of some people at the present time, and that obviously may be part of the way in which we go in the future. But at this stage, there's a series of proposals which Tony has announced, and they're the ones which give the broad direction of the way in which we think we should go. I mean, we have at the same time the Prime Minister saying that she wants to create 2 million new jobs without any specific proposals about how that's going to be done, but unless she starts to tackle some of these endemic issues, and these are issues that not just we have identified. Jeff Harmer, the Secretary of the Department of Families and Community Services, just before Christmas identified the burgeoning number of people on the disability support pension as one of the major challenges facing the government in Australia.
Kevin Andrews, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, Lyndal.
Joining me now in the studio is Dr Cassandra Goldie, the Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Council of Social Service. And Dr Goldie,